My stepmother called screaming that my father was dying. I drove 4 hours, terrified, only to find him sitting up while she shoved legal forms in my face. They thought grief would blind me. They forgot I audit fraudsters for a living. Before we continue today's story, we have an urgent announcement to make. Due to technical issues, we are pivoting towards another channel. Please subscribe to our new channel, Kin and Karma. You can find the link in the video description, the pinned comment, and the collaboration tag on this video. Make sure to switch over now so you don't miss out. Thank you for your support. Now back to the story. The numbers on my screen were blurring together. It was 8:45 p.m. on a Thursday, and the only light in the office came from my dual monitors and the blinking red notification of the security system near the elevator. I rubbed my temples, trying to massage away the headache that had been building since my third cup of coffee that morning. Being a forensic accountant meant my busy season wasn't just about taxes. It was about audits, investigating embezzlement claims, and sifting through thousands of lines of code to find the one discrepancy that proved someone was lying. I was in the middle of unraveling a particularly nasty case of payroll fraud for a mid-sized logistics company when my phone vibrated violently against the mahogany veneer of my desk. The sound echoed in the empty office, making me jump. I glanced at the screen. Evelyn. My stomach tightened. My stepmother never called. In the 10 years since she had married my father, our communication had been strictly limited to text messages on birthdays and the occasional passive-aggressive Facebook comment. If she was calling me, voice to voice, late on a Thursday, something was wrong. I hesitated for a second, my thumb hovering over the green button. A sudden, irrational fear gripped me. Dad, I swiped right. Hello. Alice, oh God, Alice. The scream on the other end was so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. Evelyn wasn't just crying, she was wailing, a guttural, terrifying sound that made the hair on my arms stand up. Evelyn, what is it? What happened? I stood up, my chair rolling back and hitting the file cabinet behind me with a loud clang. It's Caleb, it's your father. She shrieked, her voice cracking. He collapsed. Oh my God, there was so much, he just grabbed his chest and fell. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. My knees hit the floor before I even realized I had lost the strength to stand. Is he breathing? Did you call 911? The ambulance just left. She sobbed. They're taking him to the hospital, but they said it doesn't look good, Alice. It's a massive coronary event. You need to come now. You need to come right now if you want to say goodbye. The air left my lungs. The office, the fraud case, the headache, it all vanished. All I could see was my father's face the last time I saw him, looking tired and older than his 65 years. I'm leaving now, I said, my voice shaking so hard I barely recognized it. I'm in the city. It'll take me 4 hours. Just hurry, Evelyn cried. Please, Alice, he's asking for you. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. He's asking for you. I grabbed my purse, leaving my laptop open and unlocked, violating every security protocol I had ever preached. I didn't care. I ran to the elevator, jamming the button repeatedly. The betrayal I was about to uncover, the intricate web of lies waiting for me in my childhood home, was the furthest thing from my mind. In that moment, I was just a terrified daughter. But as the elevator doors slid shut, sealing me in, a cold, hard knot of dread settled in my stomach. The betrayal awaiting me was worse than the diagnosis itself. The drive was a blur of rain-slicked asphalt and blinding headlights. A storm had rolled in off the coast, turning the interstate into a treacherous slip-and slide. My windshield wipers slapped back and forth, a frantic metronome counting down the seconds I might have left with my father. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, my knuckles aching with the tension. Every time my phone buzzed with a notification, I flinched, terrified it was Evelyn calling to tell me I was too late. 4 hours. 4 hours to think. 4 hours to regret every missed call, every holiday I'd spent working, every excuse I'd made not to visit. My relationship with my father, Caleb, had been complicated ever since Mom died. He had been a brilliant civil engineer, a man of logic and structure. But grief had cracked his foundation. When Evelyn entered the picture 3 years later, she didn't just fill the void, she remodeled the entire structure of his life. Evelyn was an interior designer by trade, but her true talent lay in curation. She curated her image, her friends, and eventually my father. She was beautiful, yes, in a sharp, perfectly maintained way that felt more like a showroom display than a human being. She had come with baggage, her son, Tyler, my stepbrother, 2 years younger than me but developmentally stuck in a perpetual adolescence. At 28, he was currently calling himself a visionary entrepreneur, which was code for unemployed and chasing get-rich-quick schemes on the internet. I merged onto the highway that led toward the sleepy suburb where I grew up. The rain was easing up, leaving a heavy mist that clung to the trees. I thought about the last time I saw Dad. It was Christmas, 4 months ago. He had looked thin. He had seemed distracted, constantly checking his watch, his eyes darting to Evelyn for approval before he spoke. I had asked him if everything was okay financially. I had noticed he was driving an older car and the house needed repairs, but Evelyn had cut in, laughing her tinkling, practiced laugh. "Oh, Alice, you're always so suspicious. We're just downsizing. Simplifying." I should have pressed harder. I should have used my skills then. As I took the exit for Oak Creek, a strange feeling washed over me. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was a low-level hum of anxiety that I usually only felt when looking at a falsified ledger. Something didn't add up. Evelyn said the ambulance had taken him. But 20 minutes ago, when I called for an update, she said they were stabilizing him at home because the hospital was overwhelmed and they had a private nurse. Stabilizing a massive coronary at home. It was medically possible, I supposed, with the right equipment and concierge medicine, which was becoming popular in their wealthy circle. But it felt off. I pulled into the driveway of the sprawling Victorian house that used to feel like a sanctuary. Now it just looked imposing in the dark. The porch light was off. There were no other cars in the driveway, no ambulance, no doctor's vehicle, just Evelyn's pristine Lexus and Tyler's flashy, leased sports car. I parked and killed the engine. The silence of the suburbs pressed in on me. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. "Focus, Alice, he needs you." I got out of the car, the wet gravel crunching under my boots. I walked up the steps, my heart in my throat. I reached for my keys, but the door swung open before I could touch the lock. Evelyn stood there. She was wearing a silk robe, her hair perfectly coiffed, her makeup smudge-free. For a woman whose husband had just suffered a massive heart attack, she looked remarkably put together. "Alice," she whispered, pulling me into a hug that felt stiff and performative. She smelled of expensive lavender and was that wine. "Where is he?" I asked, pulling away. "Is the nurse with him?" "He's in the den," she said, her voice dropping to a theatrical hush. "We set up a hospital bed. The doctor said he needs absolute quiet, no stress." "The doctor isn't here." "He just left," she said quickly, her eyes darting away for a fraction of a second. "He gave us strict instructions." I walked past her into the foyer. The house was dimly lit. Shadows stretched long across the hallway. I moved toward the den, my accountant's brain involuntarily cataloging the details. New rug, expensive, new art on the walls, very expensive. The antique grandfather clock, my mother's favorite, was gone. "Alice, wait," Evelyn said, hurrying after me. "Before you go in, there's something we need to discuss. The doctor, he said this might happen again. Tonight is critical." "Then why isn't he in the ICU?" I snapped, my patience fraying. "Because he wanted to be home." Evelyn's voice rose, then she caught herself. "He wanted to be here with us, with his family." I reached the door to the den. My hand hovered over the brass knob. I felt a chill run down my spine, a primal warning that I was walking into a trap. They had orchestrated this scene perfectly, or so they thought. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. I spent my life looking for the things people tried to hide in the margins. I pushed the door open. The den had been transformed. The heavy oak furniture was pushed to the walls, and in the center of the room sat a rented hospital bed. My father, Caleb, was lying there, propped up by pillows. He was hooked up to a heart monitor that beeped rhythmically, a steady, reassuring beep, beep, beep. "Dad," I breathed, rushing to his side. He looked pale, his skin waxy under the dim lamplight. His eyes were closed, his breathing shallow. "Alice." He rasped, his eyes fluttering open. They were glassy, unfocused. "You came." "Of course I came," I said, grabbing his hand. It felt cold. "I'm here, Dad." Tyler emerged from the shadows in the corner of the room. He was wearing designer sweatpants and a hoodie that probably cost more than my first car. He held a tablet in his hands, tapping away at it nervously. "Hey, Alice," Tyler said. He didn't look at me, his eyes were glued to the floor. He looked guilty. Not sad, not worried. Guilty. "What are you doing, Tyler?" I asked, my voice sharp. "Just checking medical stuff," he mumbled, shoving the tablet under his arm. Evelyn glided to the other side of the bed, placing a manicured hand on my father's shoulder. "He needs rest, Alice, but there is the matter of the treatment." I looked up at her. "Treatment?" "The doctor," Evelyn began, her voice taking on that smooth, sales pitch quality I recognized from her real estate days. "He says Caleb's heart is failing. The standard procedures won't work. There is an experimental treatment, a specialist in Switzerland. We can fly him there by medical jet tomorrow, but we have to book it tonight." "Switzerland?" I frowned. "Dad has excellent insurance. Why wouldn't we go to the cardiac center downtown? It's one of the best in the country." "Insurance won't cover this." Evelyn insisted, her eyes widening. "It's experimental, but it's his only chance. The doctor said if we don't do this, he might not last the week." Dad groaned softly, squeezing my hand. "Alice, please, I want to live." It broke my heart to see him like this, begging. It was so unlike the strong, stoic man who raised me. "How much is it?" I asked, looking between Evelyn and Tyler. Evelyn hesitated, then straightened her spine. $300,000 for the transport and the initial surgery. I stared at her. 300,000. Dad doesn't have that kind of liquidity. You told me you were downsizing. "We don't," Evelyn said, her voice turning hard. "But you do." The air in the room grew heavy. "The trust," she said, "the trust, my mother's life insurance policy and inheritance. She had locked it away in a trust specifically for me, accessible only when I turned 35 or in the event of a dire medical emergency for immediate family members. I was 34. You want me to liquidate Mom's trust," I stated flatly. "It's for your father." Tyler piped up, his voice cracking. "Don't you want to save him?" "Of course I do," I said, looking at my father. He looked so pathetic, so weak. "Dad, is this what you want?" "Please, honey," Caleb whispered, a tear leaking out of his eye. "Everything is so messy. Evelyn knows best. Just sign the papers." Evelyn reached behind her and produced a thick blue folder. She opened it on the bedside table. "I had the lawyer draw these up just in case. It grants me power of attorney over the trust solely for medical expenses. We can wire the deposit tonight." She held out a pen, a heavy, expensive Mont Blanc. "Just sign here, here, and here," she said, pointing to the little X marks on the crisp paper. I looked at the papers. I looked at the heart monitor beeping steadily. I looked at Tyler, who was practically vibrating with anxiety, and Evelyn, who was watching me with the intensity of a hawk spotting a field mouse. They were so prepared. The bed, the story, the papers. I took the pen. "Okay," I said softly. "Let me just read them first." "There's no time." Evelyn snapped, her mask slipping for a fraction of a second before she recovered. "The jet needs to be booked in the next hour, or we lose the slot." "I'm an auditor, Evelyn," I said, looking her dead in the eye. "I don't sign anything I haven't read. It'll only take a minute." I looked down at the documents. My eyes scanned the legal jargon. It looked standard. Transfer of funds, emergency medical authorization. But then my eyes drifted to the top of the page, to the header. Dr. A.J. Sterling, Cardiology and Thoracic Surgery. I blinked. I knew that name. Not because he was a famous doctor, but because I had audited a pharmaceutical supply chain 3 years ago that involved a Dr. Sterling. He was a podiatrist, a foot doctor. I turned the page, my heart rate spiking, not from grief, but from the adrenaline of the hunt. I looked at the medical report attached to the back. Patient, Caleb Miller. Diagnosis, acute myocardial infarction. Date, October 14th. Today was October 12th. They had predated the medical report by 2 days. I looked closer at the heart monitor. It was an older model. I followed the black wire running from the machine. It snaked under the sheet toward my father's chest. But just before it reached him, the wire looped down and plugged into a small black box resting on the mattress frame. A demo loop box, used for calibrating machines or training students. My father wasn't hooked up to the monitor. The beeping was a recording. A cold, white-hot rage flooded my system, instantly burning away the fear and sadness. I looked at my father. He wasn't dying, he was drugged. Probably sedatives to make him look weak and compliant, and Evelyn and Tyler. They weren't saving him, they were robbing me. I gripped the pen tighter. Well, Evelyn pressed, leaning in close. Alice, please, for your father. I looked up at her, forcing a trembling smile onto my face. You're right, Evelyn, I said, uncapping the pen. We can't waste another second. I held the pen over the paper, the tip hovering just millimeters from the signature line. Evelyn let out a breath she must have been holding since I walked in, her body visibly relaxing. Tyler actually shifted his weight, a smug little grin flickering across his face before he schooled it back into a mask of concern. Just right there, honey, Evelyn urged softly, pointing a manicured nail at the line. And then we can get him the help he needs. I didn't sign. Instead, I let out a long, shaky sigh and capped the pen. I need a glass of water, I said, my voice intentionally trembling. I'm feeling faint. The drive, the shock. Evelyn's eyes narrowed, a flash of irritation sparking behind her contacts. Alice, the plane. I know. I cried, putting a hand to my forehead. I just need 1 minute. Please, Evelyn, I can't think straight, just a glass of water. She hesitated, looking between me and the papers. Fine, Tyler, get her some water. Why me? Tyler whined, sounding exactly like the petulant teenager he never grew out of. Just go. Evelyn snapped. Tyler slouched out of the room. As soon as he was gone, I turned to Evelyn. I'm sorry, it's just $300,000 is a lot of money. I need to call the bank to authorize the transfer limit anyway. They'll flag it as suspicious activity if I don't. Evelyn stiffened. Call them now. Use speakerphone if you have to. We need that confirmation number. My phone is dead, I lied smoothly. I left my charger in the car. Can I use yours? Suspicion clouded her face. Why can't you use the landline? Two-factor authentication, I said, tapping my temple. It's linked to a mobile app. I can download it on your phone, log in, authorize the transfer, and delete it. It'll take 2 minutes. It was technical jargon, mostly nonsense in this context, but it sounded plausible enough to someone who still wrote checks at the grocery store. Evelyn stared at me for a long moment, weighing the risk. Greed won. She pulled her iPhone from her pocket and unlocked it. Make it fast, she hissed, handing it over. And don't go snooping. I wouldn't dream of it, I said, taking the phone. I'll just step into the hall for better reception. I walked out of the den and into the hallway, closing the door behind me. I didn't download any banking app. I went straight to her emails. My thumb flew across the screen. Search, Dr. Sterling. Nothing. Search, Switzerland. Nothing. Search, Tyler. Bingo, dozens of emails. Not from doctors, but from debt collectors. Urgent final notice. Legal action pending. Repossession warning. I scrolled down. One email caught my eye. It was from a sender named Vegas VIP Hosts. Subject, your account balance. Date, yesterday. Ms. Miller, per our conversation, the outstanding marker of $285,000 must be settled by Friday, or we will be forced to involve legal counsel and contact the authorities regarding the fraudulent wire transfer attempted last month. My blood ran cold. Tyler hadn't just racked up debt, he'd committed wire fraud, and Evelyn was trying to use my inheritance to bail him out before he went to prison. I quickly forwarded the email to my own secure work account, then deleted the sent message. I checked her photos next. There it was. A photo taken yesterday. Tyler and Evelyn clinking champagne glasses in this very hallway. Timestamp, 7:42 p.m. Dad was in the background, sitting in his favorite chair, looking perfectly healthy, reading a newspaper. They had been planning this celebration. I heard footsteps approaching from the kitchen. Tyler was coming back with the water. I quickly opened a random app, Candy Crush, just as Tyler rounded the corner. "Here," he grunted, shoving a glass of tap water at me. "Thanks," I said, handing the phone back to him. "Tell your mom the bank system is down for maintenance until 6 a.m. I can't authorize the transfer until then." "What?" Tyler's face went pale. "But the plane, we need the money tonight." "I can't help that," I said, shrugging. "Banks have maintenance windows. It happens." "Mom is going to freak," Tyler whispered, looking at the closed den door with genuine fear. "Let her freak," I said, my voice hardening. "I'm going to go check on Dad. Alone." I pushed past him and re-entered the den. Evelyn looked up expectantly. "It's done?" she asked. "System maintenance," I said, walking over to the bed. "I have to wait until morning." "Morning?" Evelyn shrieked. "He doesn't have until morning." "He looks stable," I said calmly, placing my hand on my father's chest. His heart was beating steadily, strong and rhythmic, completely out of sync with the erratic beeping of the machine. "In fact, he looks remarkably stable for a man with acute heart failure." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "What are you implying?" "Nothing," I said, turning to face her. "Just that I'm going to stay right here by his side all night. I won't leave him for a second. And in the morning, when the bank opens, we can sort everything out." I sat down in the armchair next to the bed, crossing my legs. "You should get some rest, Evelyn. You look exhausted." She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. She knew she couldn't force me to sign without raising suspicion. She was trapped. "Fine," she spat, "but if he dies tonight, it's on your hands." She stormed out of the room. I waited until I heard her footsteps retreat upstairs, then I pulled out my own phone, which had plenty of battery left. I had work to do. The hours ticked by in agonizing slowness. I didn't sleep. I spent the night documenting everything. I took photos of the fake monitor setup. I took photos of the medical documents. I even found the empty bottle of sleeping pills in the trash can, benzodiazepines prescribed to Evelyn. That explained Dad's lethargy. Around 3 a.m., Dad started to stir. The drugs were wearing off. "Alice," he mumbled, his voice thick. "I'm here, Dad," I whispered, leaning close. "Don't speak, just listen. Do you know where you are?" "Home," he said, rubbing his eyes. "I feel heavy. Why am I in this bed?" "Evelyn said you had a heart attack," I said gently. "Heart attack." He frowned, confusion knitting his brows. I felt fine. We had dinner. Evelyn made that soup I like, then I got so sleepy, I just woke up here." "Did a doctor come see you?" "Doctor, no. I don't remember a doctor." My jaw tightened. They had drugged him at dinner. "Dad," I said, taking his hand, "Evelyn and Tyler are in trouble, financial trouble. They're trying to make me sign over Mom's trust to pay for a fake surgery for you." He stared at me, his eyes widening as the fog cleared. "What? Number Evelyn, she wouldn't." "She would," I said, "and she did. Tyler owes nearly $300,000 to a casino in Vegas. They're desperate." "Tyler?" Dad closed his eyes, a look of profound pain crossing his face. I knew he was gambling again. I told Evelyn I wouldn't bail him out this time. I told her no more. "So she found another way," I said. By using me." At 7:00 a.m., the sun began to bleed through the heavy curtains. I heard movement upstairs. They were awake. I stood up and stretched. I looked at Dad. He was awake now, fully lucid and furious. "Stay in bed," I told him. "Let them think the plan is still working. I need them to admit it." The door opened. Evelyn walked in, dressed in a crisp black suit, looking ready for a funeral or a board meeting. Tyler trailed behind her, looking significantly worse for wear, dark circles under his eyes. "The bank is open," Evelyn announced without preamble. "Alice, the papers." "Good morning to you too," I said, not moving from my spot between them and the bed. Don't play games with me, Evelyn snapped, marching over to the bedside table. She picked up the pen and held it out. Sign the transfer authorization. The jet is waiting on the tarmac. There is no jet, Evelyn, I said quietly. The room went dead silent. Excuse me. She laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound. Of course there is, don't be ridiculous. I called the airport, I lied. There are no private medical flights scheduled for departure today or yesterday. You must have called the wrong terminal, Tyler stammered. And I called Dr. Sterling's office, I continued, stepping closer to them. Funny thing, the receptionist said Dr. Sterling is a podiatrist. He doesn't do heart surgery, he fixes bunions. Evelyn's face drained of color, the mask was cracking. You don't know what you're talking about, she hissed, her voice low and dangerous. There are multiple Dr. Sterlings, it's a common name. Is it? I asked. Is it as common as a fake heart monitor hooked up to a demo loop? I reached down and yanked the sheet off the bed, revealing the little black box with the flashing red light. I held it up for them to see. What is this, Evelyn? A new pacemaker. Tyler took a step back, looking like he might vomit. Evelyn, however, didn't back down. She doubled down. You ungrateful little brat, she spat, her face twisting into an ugly sneer. You think you're so smart with your fancy job and your city apartment. You have no idea what we've been through. Your father is sick. He is sick, and you're interrogating us like criminals. He's not sick, I shouted back. He's drugged. I found the pills in the trash, Evelyn. He needed to sleep, she shrieked. His heart couldn't take the stress. We did it to protect him. Protect him from what? I demanded. From finding out that his wife and stepson are trying to steal his daughter's inheritance to pay off a gambling debt. Evelyn froze, her eyes darted to Tyler, then back to me. I don't know what you're talking about. I saw the email from Vegas, Evelyn, I said, my voice dropping to a calm, deadly whisper. $300,000, or Tyler goes to jail for wire fraud. You hacked my phone, she screamed, lunging at me. That's illegal. I'll have you arrested. Go ahead, I said, standing my ground. Call the police. Let's see who they arrest first. The hacker or the people committing elder abuse, fraud, and attempted grand larceny. You have no proof, Tyler yelled, finding his voice. It's just your word against ours. Dad will never believe you. He trusts us. Is that so? A voice came from the bed, deep, resonant, and utterly heartbroken. Actually, Tyler, Dad said, sitting up and pulling the sensors off his chest. I believe her. Evelyn and Tyler spun around, horror etched onto their faces. Caleb, Evelyn gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. You're awake? Oh, thank God, we were so worried. She rushed toward him, arms outstretched, switching instantly back to the doting wife persona. It was terrifying to watch. Don't touch me, Dad said. His voice wasn't loud, but it stopped her in her tracks like a physical wall. Caleb, please, she whimpered, tears instantly springing to her eyes. She's lying. Alice is lying. She's trying to tear us apart because she's jealous. She's always hated me. She showed me the box, Evelyn, Dad said, pointing to the demo unit in my hand. She showed me the pills, and I heard you. I heard you say it was better if I didn't wake up until the money was transferred. I never said that. Evelyn cried, looking frantically at Tyler for support. You did, I interjected. Last night, in the kitchen. If the old man wakes up, we're screwed. Remember. I hadn't mentioned that part before. I had been listening from the top of the stairs while they thought I was asleep. Tyler looked like he was about to faint. Mom, we have to go. Shut up, Evelyn hissed at him. She turned back to Dad, her expression hardening. The tears vanished. The pleading stopped. If the doting wife act wouldn't work, she'd try the bully. Fine, she sneered. So you know, so what? You're going to let your son go to prison. Because that's what will happen, Caleb. If we don't pay them by tomorrow, Tyler is finished. Do you want that on your conscience? My son? Dad looked at Tyler with a mixture of pity and disgust. He's not my son, Evelyn, and he's a grown man who made his own choices. He's family, she screamed. And you have plenty of money. That trust fund is just sitting there. Alice doesn't need it. She makes plenty of money. Why should she hoard it while we suffer? That money was from my mother, I said, stepping forward. For my future, not for your blackjack losses. You selfish B***TCH. Evelyn lunged again, but this time she grabbed the papers from the table and ripped them in half, throwing the pieces at me. You think you've won? You haven't won anything. I have power of attorney over Caleb's accounts. General power of attorney. I signed it last week. She pulled another document from her pocket, waving it triumphantly. I can drain the joint accounts, she sneered. I can sell the cars. I can take a loan out against the house. And I will burn this whole life to the ground before I let my son go to jail. Dad looked at the document in her hand. His face went pale. I never signed that. You did, Evelyn smirked. Last Tuesday, when you were feeling poorly after dinner, you signed a lot of things, Caleb. My heart sank. If she had a valid power of attorney, she could do exactly what she threatened. She could wipe Dad out completely. You're bluffing, I said. Try me, she challenged. I'm going to the bank right now, and unless you want to see your father living in a cardboard box, you'll transfer that trust money to Tyler's account within the hour. She grabbed her purse and keys. Come on, Tyler. They turned to leave. Wait, I said. They stopped, turning back with smug smiles. You're forgetting one thing, I said, pulling my phone out. What? Evelyn asked, bored. I'm a forensic accountant, I said, and I specialize in fraud detection. So, I continued, tapping my screen. I didn't just look at your emails last night. I looked at the metadata of the document you just waved in my face. You scanned it and emailed it to yourself 3 days ago. And I noticed something interesting about the notary stamp, I said. It's from a notary in the next town over, a Mr. Henderson. I looked him up. His license expired 6 months ago. Evelyn's smile faltered. And, I added, I also looked up the witness signatures. Sarah Jenkins and Mike Ross. They don't exist in this county. But coincidentally, those are the names of the characters in the TV show you were watching on Netflix last week. I took a step closer. That power of attorney is a forgery, Evelyn, a bad one. And if you try to use it at the bank, you'll be committing a second felony. On top of the elder abuse. On top of the attempted grand larceny. Evelyn stared at me. The color drained from her face completely. I already sent the report to the bank's fraud department. I lied. Well, mostly lied. I had drafted the email, but hadn't hit send yet. Their legal team is reviewing it as we speak. If you walk into that bank, the police will be waiting for you. For the first time, Evelyn looked truly terrified. She looked at the document in her hand, then at me, then at Dad. You wouldn't, she whispered. I would, I said, and I will. Get out, Dad said. His voice was stronger now. He stood up from the bed, shaky but determined. Get out of my house, both of you. Caleb, you can't. Get out, he roared, pointing at the door. Evelyn flinched. She looked at Tyler, who was already backing away. She looked at the forged document, then crumpled it in her hand. This isn't over, she hissed at me. Oh, I know, I said, smiling coldly. Because I haven't even called the Vegas police yet about the wire fraud. But don't worry, I'm getting to that. She turned and ran. We heard the front door slam, followed by the screech of tires peeling out of the driveway. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked at Dad. He slumped back onto the bed, burying his face in his hands. I'm so sorry, Alice, he sobbed. I'm so sorry. I sat down beside him and put my arm around his shoulders. It's okay, Dad. It's over. They're gone. But as I held him, I knew it wasn't quite over. Evelyn was desperate, and desperate people did dangerous things. I needed to make sure she could never hurt him again. The sound of the front door slamming echoed in the silent house like a gunshot. Dad slumped back against the pillows, the fight draining out of him as quickly as it had appeared. He looked small, fragile, a man whose entire reality had just shattered. But I couldn't afford to crumble. Not yet. Evelyn and Tyler were desperate, and desperate people were unpredictable. They had fled, yes, but they still had keys to the house, access to joint accounts I hadn't frozen yet, and intimate knowledge of my father's life. "Dad," I said gently, taking the glass of water from the bedside table and handing it to him. "Drink this. We have work to do." He looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "Work, Alice, I can't. My wife, my son." "Your ex-wife and her criminal son," I corrected firmly. "And right now, they are probably driving to the nearest branch to empty whatever accounts they still can access before the fraud alert kicks in. We need to secure everything. Now." I pulled out my laptop and set it up on the bedside table, tethering it to my phone's hotspot just in case they had tampered with the Wi-Fi. "First," I said, logging into the main banking portal for his primary checking account, "we are freezing all joint assets. What's your password?" He hesitated, a flicker of old loyalty warring with the fresh betrayal. It's Evelyn's birthday, 4/12. I typed it in, incorrect password. "She changed it," I murmured. "Of course she did." Try the day we got married, 6/15. Incorrect password, I looked at him. Think, Dad, what would she use? Something only she would know, something possessive. He shook his head, looking defeated. "I don't know, Alice. She handled all the finances for the last 2 years. She said it was too stressful for me." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I thought about Evelyn. Vain, materialistic, obsessed with appearances. I tried Tyler 1994. Access granted, I let out a harsh laugh. Unbelievable, she set the password to her son's name. I quickly navigated to the transfer page. My breath hitched. Pending transaction, $45,000 to T. Miller. Status, processing. She had initiated a transfer from her phone right before she walked into the room this morning. $45,000. It wasn't the full $300,000 she needed for Vegas, but it was a significant chunk of Dad's retirement savings. "She's trying to drain the savings," I said, my fingers flying across the keys. "I'm canceling it." I hit cancel transaction. The screen buffered. Processing. "Come on," I whispered. Transaction canceled. I slumped back in the chair, relief washing over me. Okay, the money is safe. Now I'm changing the password and enabling two-factor authentication to my phone number. She's locked out. Dad watched me in silence, a look of awe on his face. You're good at this." "It's what I do, Dad," I said softly. "I find the lies." For the next 2 hours, we went through everything. Credit cards, investment accounts, even the deed to the house. I found 3 credit cards opened in Dad's name that he didn't know about, all maxed out on luxury goods and cash advances. I found a second mortgage application that had been denied last month due to insufficient income verification. Evelyn had been trying to leverage the house to pay off Tyler's debts for months. By noon, we had a complete picture of the financial devastation. It was bad, nearly $80,000 in unauthorized debt, but it wasn't insurmountable. The house was safe. The retirement fund was intact. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You think you're so smart, but you forgot about the safe deposit box. The one with your mother's jewelry. My blood turned to ice. Mom's jewelry. The vintage pearls, the diamond engagement ring, the sapphire necklace she wore on special occasions. Dad had kept them in a safe deposit box at the downtown branch, promising they would be mine one day. "Dad," I said, my voice tight, "does Evelyn have a key to the safe deposit box?" He paled. She might. I kept the spare key in the desk drawer in the study. I ran to the study. The drawer was empty. "We have to go," I said, grabbing my keys. "Now." We raced to the bank, Dad in the passenger seat, clutching the door handle as I weaved through traffic. We arrived just as a familiar silver Lexus was pulling out of the parking lot. Evelyn, she saw us. Her eyes widened, and she gunned the engine, tires screeching as she merged recklessly into traffic. "She has them," Dad cried. I didn't chase her. It was too dangerous, and frankly, I didn't need to. I had something better than a high-speed pursuit. I parked the car and walked calmly into the bank, Dad trailing behind me. I approached the branch manager, a woman I recognized from my audits in the city. "Alice," she asked, surprised, "what are you doing here?" "Reporting a theft in progress," I said loudly enough for the security guard to hear. "My father's ex-wife just left with stolen property from his safe deposit box. We need to access the logs and seal the box immediately." 20 minutes later, we were in the viewing room. The box was empty. "She took everything," Dad whispered, tears streaming down his face. "Your mother's ring, the necklace." "Don't worry, Dad," I said, pulling out my phone again. "Remember that email I forwarded last night?" I dialed a number. "Who are you calling?" "The Las Vegas Metro Police Department," I said. "Financial Crimes Division. I have evidence of wire fraud, identity theft, and now grand larceny across state lines if she tries to sell that jewelry." I spoke to the detective for 10 minutes, giving him everything: Tyler's gambling debts, the fraudulent emails, the forged medical documents, and now the theft of the jewelry. I gave him the license plate of the Lexus and Evelyn's likely destination, a pawn shop or fence to get quick cash for Tyler. "They'll put out a bolo," I told Dad as I hung up. "She won't get far." We drove back to the house in silence, but it was a different kind of silence this time. It wasn't fearful. It was resolute. When we pulled into the driveway, a police cruiser was already there. An officer was standing on the porch, talking too. Tyler, he was sitting on the steps, head in his hands, sobbing. Evelyn was nowhere to be seen. We got out of the car. The officer approached us. "Are you Caleb Miller?" "Yes," Dad said, standing tall. "We found this young man trying to break into the back window," the officer said, gesturing to Tyler. "He claims he lives here." "He doesn't," Dad said coldly. "Dad, please," Tyler wailed, looking up. His face was a mess of snot and tears. "She left me. She took the jewelry and drove off. She said every man for himself. I have nowhere to go. The guys from Vegas, they're going to kill me." "Where did she go, Tyler?" I asked, stepping forward. She went to meet a guy, a fence, in the city. She said she could get 50 grand for the ring." I looked at the officer. "You might want to radio that in." The officer nodded and went back to his car. I looked down at Tyler. The arrogance, the entitlement, the cruelty, it was all gone. He was just a scared, pathetic boy who had let his mother ruin him. "You should have signed the papers, Alice," he whispered. "None of this would have happened." "You're right," I said. "If I had signed, you would have gotten away with it. But you forgot one thing, Tyler." "What?" "I don't sign anything I haven't read." 2 hours later, we got the call. Evelyn had been arrested at a pawn shop in the city, trying to sell a 2-carat diamond ring for a fraction of its value. The jeweler had recognized the stone from a stolen property alert the police had issued just minutes prior. She was charged with grand larceny, identity theft, and elder abuse. Tyler was picked up on outstanding warrants for fraud and illegal gambling activities. The house was quiet that night. For the first time in years, it felt peaceful. Dad and I sat in the kitchen, drinking tea. He looked tired, older, but lighter somehow. The heavy burden of secrecy and manipulation had been lifted. "I don't know how to thank you, Alice," he said, staring into his mug. "I was so blind. I let them take everything." "Not everything," I said, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. "You still have the house, you have your pension, and you have me." He looked up, tears welling in his eyes again. "I haven't been a good father to you, Alice. Not since your mother died. I let Evelyn push you away." "I know," I said, "and that hurts, but we can fix it. It will take time, but we can fix it." "I want to," he said earnestly. "I really want to." "Good," I smiled, "because I'm going to need you to sign some papers." He flinched. "Papers?" "Legitimate ones," I laughed, pulling a folder from my bag. "I drew these up while you were napping. It's a revocable living trust. It puts the house and your assets into a protected entity. I'm the trustee, but you have full use of everything for your lifetime. It means no one, not Evelyn, not Tyler, not anyone, can ever trick you into signing your life away again." He looked at the document, then at me. He didn't hesitate. He didn't ask to read it, though I made him read it anyway. He just picked up a pen and signed his name. "Done," he said, handing it back. "You're really good at this, you know." "Forensic accounting." I grinned. "Yeah, it pays the bills." "No," he said, smiling for the first time in days. "Protecting your family." The next few months were a blur of legal proceedings. Evelyn took a plea deal, 5 years in prison for larceny and fraud. Tyler got 3 years with mandatory gambling addiction treatment. I helped Dad clean out the house. We sold Evelyn's ridiculous furniture, donated her clothes, and repainted the walls. We found Mom's old grandfather clock in the attic, hidden under a tarp, and put it back in the hallway where it belonged. Dad started therapy. He joined a local gardening club. He started acting like himself again, and me. I went back to the city, back to my audits and my spreadsheets, but I visited every weekend. One Sunday, we were sitting on the porch, watching the sunset. Dad turned to me. "You know," he said, "I always wanted you to be an engineer like me. I thought accounting was boring." I laughed, and now, he said, taking a sip of his iced tea, "I think it's the most exciting job in the world. You're like a superhero with a calculator." "I'll take it," I said. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. I thought about the phone call, the panic, the long drive in the rain. I thought about the fake heart monitor and the forged papers. It had been the worst week of my life, but looking at my dad, safe and smiling, I knew I would do it all again. Because in the end, the numbers didn't lie. And neither did love.